how are you? Welcome back to my channel. So excited you're here because we're doing my midweek check-in. I know there's a tag going around for the mid-year freakout. Not doing that one, doing things a little bit different because there are some things that I want to touch on that aren't in the tag, and then there are some questions in the tag that I've already answered recently. So just doing things a little bit differently. This is exactly the halfway point of the year as I'm filming this. So I've read 57 books so far this year, 15,133 pages. They've all been physical books except for one digital. I just have a hard time with screens. So as you can see, most as far as mood goes, I love the story graph charts. Mood wise, they've mostly been dark, mysterious, tense, followed by adventurous and funny. And then we have an average rating of 4.05. I've gotten really good at knowing what I'm gonna like and what I'm not gonna like, and I have no issue DNFing. So, and I do not rate DNFs. So pretty good rating so far. I've read a lot of really good books. Have had a more 3-star than normal, and I've even had a couple of 2 stars. And typically I don't have a lot of 2 stars because I will DNF a book before I rate it 2 stars. If I don't like a book, like if I feel like it's going to be a 2-star, if I'm not enjoying myself, I will just push it to the side and I won't read it. But I've actually had a couple 2 stars this year, and they ended up not being a 2-star until I got to the end. So it's just one of those things. That's where we are on that. As far as my goals, I don't really push myself as far as numbers. I'll put a number out there just for Goodreads, just to see. But the number I put out there was 100. I am on track with that, a little bit over, because I have read 57, so I am over as far as that goes. On my 24 books to read in 2024, I'm not doing too good on that. I've only read 8 of them. There are just too many good books that I wanted to get to, and I've just gotten distracted with that. I need to do better with that one. Yeah, I've done a few buddy reads this year, which is exciting. I didn't get to do as many of those last year. I've just made a lot of good friends, and I've really enjoyed those. Books that I'm excited about coming out this year. Let's talk about those real quick before we get into my favorites and least favorite so far. And I won't tell you too much about these because, you know, actually that's 2025. I won't get too much into these because I figure you can look them up, and I don't want to sit here because there are a lot of them. First one is This Girl's a Killer by Emma Wells. This one's coming out in October. I guess I'm not going to go too far into those. I'll let you guys look them up because I don't want to bore you, and I don't want to, like, we would be here all day if I went into every single one of these because there are a lot. Model Home. This one is also coming out in October. It's a haunted house story. We have another one coming out in October, which is American Rapture by C.J. Leede. She was the author of Mayfly, which I loved. Another one coming out in October, which is Of the Flesh, 18 Stories of Modern Horror. It's a short story collection. It says, these stories from 18 master storytellers will curdle your blood, haunt your dreams, and redefine terror. And the cover is gorgeous. Another one coming out in October. This one is Self-Made Monsters by Rebecca Cuthbert. That cover is amazing. Love it so much. And it is feminist horror in stories and verse. Self-Made Monsters features women and our world as we are and as we want to be. As victims, victors, and villains. As wanting, wanton, and wallowing, but without judgment or disdain. So that one sounds really, really, really good. Then we have also October, Fang Fiction by Stayman-London. That one is like a vampire romance, which, you know, I don't read a lot of romance, but you throw vampires into it and I might actually read it. That one sounds really fun. This one's coming out in September, and it is a short story horror collection, A Sunny Place for Shady People by Mariana Enriquez. Then we have Lucy Undying by Kiersten White. This cover, I don't know, you got bats, then you got wolves, and there's something about it that is just really unsettling to me, but it's kind of haunting. It's a really weird cover. This one comes out in September. It's a Dracula retelling. So we have coming out in September, So Thirsty by Rachel Harrison. I have loved everything I've read by Rachel Harrison, so I'm very excited about that. This one comes out in August, The Chamber by Will Dean. It's a locked room thriller. Heads Will Roll by Josh Winning. That one comes out at the end of this month, actually, at the end of July. And it is a horror thriller. We have The Most by Jessica Anthony. This one also comes out at the end of July. I believe this one is... It's a contemporary. This one's actually an adult contemporary. I believe, I wanted to say it was an unhinged female situation. Yeah. 1950s American housewife who decides to get into the pool in her family's apartment complex one morning and won't come out. So it's like an unhinged female situation, which you know I'm all about. That's it. I think that's all for now. Okay, that is all for upcoming releases that I'm excited about. I told you there were a crap ton of them, so I didn't get too much into all of them. And now we'll get into my best and worst of the year so far. Instead of doing like my top 10 of the year, my top 5 of the year, anything like that, I decided to do my best and worst of each month. So just because it's the best of each month doesn't mean it's in my top 10 of the year so far. And just because it's the worst of the month doesn't mean it's in the worst of the year, because I had several like favorites in one month and I had several least favorites in one month, because I had some really good months and I had some really bad months, just so you know. So this isn't too telling of the year, but that's just how I chose to do it. I think that way it's still a surprise at the end of the year. We'll go month by month here. Some of it, I don't know if you'll remember all of it, but we'll see. Starting in January, and January was a really good month. It's one of those that I loved every single book I've read, so the worst isn't bad. It's actually good, and that was Midwinter Murder by Agatha Christie. Just a cozy, you all know that Agatha Christie is cozy murder mysteries. Had a good time with it. It's all surrounding wintertime murder and Christmas, and just had a really good time with this one. Not much to say. I mean, instead of one book that all surrounded one murder, it was a book of short stories. So, had fun with it. And then my number one read of January was Misery by Stephen King. You know the story. This guy is an author who is famous, and he crashes his car one day. It's winter, and he is rescued by his biggest fan. Instead of taking him to a hospital, she takes him to her cabin in a very remote area. And of course, it's snowy and cold, and she used to be a nurse, but she is giving him meds and all this, but he's really messed up. Like, his legs are broken, and he's in really bad shape, and he's at her mercy. And she soon finds out that he has killed off her favorite character, because when she gets him, the new book hasn't come out yet, and the new book kind of comes out while he's in her care, and she finds out that he killed off her favorite character. So she basically says, buddy, you're not leaving here until you bring this character back. You're gonna write the next book right now, and you're bringing her back. And yeah, so he's kind of screwed. And this lady is nuts. She's absolutely bonkers, and she does some really mean things to him while he's at her house, and it gets ugly. I still haven't seen the movie, but I really need to. But yeah, really good. One of those nail biting, you know, you feel his pain. You really do. You feel his pain through the whole book, and you really, really bad want him to escape this crazy lady. Now we move on to February. Least favorite. The worst of February was Stalking Jack the Ripper by Kerri Maniscalco. Yeah, this one ended up being a 2-star for me. I really didn't enjoy it. It was a buddy read. I had a lot of complaints throughout the book, and it was a 3-star until the very end. The very end just really did me in with it. Didn't make a lot of sense to me, and I can't really say why, because then it would mess it up for everybody else. But yeah, I had complaints through the whole book. I had a lot of issues with it. But yeah, just a lot of repetitive things, a lot of repeating, and then I had a lot of other issues with it as well that I won't even get into, but just didn't have a good time with it. This lady was helping her uncle, like he does autopsies, and some bodies start coming in that were victims of Jack the Ripper, and this girl decides to take it upon herself to figure out who Jack the Ripper is. So she goes out and, you know, starts to try to figure it out. But yeah, it's at the time where women really weren't supposed to be going out unescorted by men, and they weren't supposed to be doing science and doing all the things that she's doing. So the whole time she just was saying repeatedly, oh, I could do anything men can do. I don't need men's help. I could do whatever they do. I could do anything I want. But yet she just kept relying on men for everything, and she just kept doing whatever they wanted her to do, and just, anyways, I struggled with it. But anyways, number 1 of the month of February was Bloom by Delilah S. Dawson. There's this lady who was recently went through a breakup, and she's moved to a new town. She's starting fresh, and she's been straight her whole life, but then she meets this lady at a farmer's market and is questioning everything. All of a sudden she's thinking, maybe I'm not straight, because she is completely mesmerized by this lady, and she kind of falls for her, and things really aren't what they seem. You kind of get hints the whole time. You kind of know where it's going, but I think that's very intentional from the author. I think she does that on purpose, because I think she wants you to have that sense of dread. I think she wants you to feel that the whole time, because the whole time you're thinking, girl, get out of there. What are you doing? Like, do you not see the hints? Are you not picking up the red flags? Like, get out of there. But even still, when you feel like you know what's coming, you kind of see the direction that it's taking. Even still, I was surprised by the end. Even still, like, it left my jaw on the floor. And it's actually really beautifully written, and just, I loved it. It's one of my favorite books ever. I actually really enjoyed it. Next up, we have March. My least favorite was The Carrow Hunt by Darcy Coates. I read this for my in-person book club, and literally all of us, I think there were 5 of us that month, every single one of us had the same complaint. We all pretty much hated this book. We liked the vibes. We thought it was super creepy, and, you know, we really enjoyed it until we didn't. And that's all I can really say without giving it away. But yeah, there's like this, Remy is a tour guide for the Carrow house. One day this guy comes in to do a tour, and he asks Remy to be a part of this week-long thing to figure out, to do like this research on the house, and to figure out what all activity they can, you know, record or whatever. So Remy reluctantly agrees because there's enough money involved that is kind of life-changing for her. So she agrees. Well, things go terribly wrong. And yeah, so that's what the book's about. But yeah, we all had the same complaint. We ended up all hating it for the same reason. It was kind of a waste of my time, honestly, and I don't think I'll be reading anything else by Darcy Coates. Ever. This was my second Darcy Coates. The one I read before this, I believe, was called Dead of Winter. It was last year. And while it wasn't a waste of my time per se, but I guess the killer from like the very beginning. I knew who the killer was, so it wasn't surprising at all. But this is my second Darcy Coates that kind of left me disappointed, so I don't think I'll be reading anymore. But yeah, this was terrible. My favorite for March was Chasing the Dragon by Mark Towse. This was so fun. This guy Simon, he had made a pact for, he had kind of made this pact with his mother whenever she was living, that he would clean up his crime-riddled town and he would make a difference, like that he would end the chaos. So here he is, his mom has passed, and he has decided to become a superhero. And he's basically building this superhero persona from scratch. He has no experience whatsoever. He has no skills. He's just like, I'm going to be a superhero and I'm going to end this chaos and I'm going to fix this town myself. And he's named himself Reformo. And it is absolutely hysterical. He gets himself into all these different situations throughout this book. It is hilarious. I laughed out loud so many times. He's very, very lovable. And just, you root for him. You cannot help but rooting for him. You cannot help but love him. He has a lot of issues. He has kind of a traumatic past. He has a lot of issues. So you have that villain, you have that hero backstory. You have that hero backstory also. And then you have his current situation, but you cannot help but love him. And he is absolutely hilarious. I had the best time reading this, like the best time. It was great. Okay, we have April, which was Old School April. I read a crap ton of books for Old School April. My least favorite was A Shocker on Shock Street, which was a Goosebumps book. It was Goosebumps. It was, just full of, those cliffhangers at the end of the chapters and, the fake outs and all that stuff. It wasn't bad. Like, I still had a good time with it. I read a lot of great books in April, so I'm not saying this was bad by any means. It just happened to be, the least favorite of the month. But doesn't mean it was bad at all. I still had a good time with it. And it was this Erin and her friend Marty. They love horror movies, and particularly Shocker on Shock Street movies. And Erin's dad has given them the opportunity to actually go on the set of these movies. But then when they go on the set, all these crazy things happen. Like, they're attacked by these giant praying mantises, and they get stuck in this cave, and all these crazy things happen. But yeah, it was still fun. It just happened to be my least favorite of the month. And then my most favorite was Elizabeth by Ken Greenhall. I'm gonna read you the back of this one. The image in the mirror of 14-year-old Elizabeth Cutner is that of the fey and long-dead Frances, who introduces Elizabeth to her chilling world of the supernatural. Through Frances, Elizabeth learns what it is to wield power. Power of a kind that is malevolent and seemingly invincible. Power that begins with the killing of her parents. Yeah. Elizabeth was just a super fascinating character. She is pure evil. She uses her sexuality against not just men, but women as well. And she has like this tone that she really doesn't care about anything. Her parents' death, like, her tone was very even throughout the whole book. Didn't matter what was going on. Everybody else could be freaking out. I think the world could be completely burning down around her, and I don't think her tone would have changed at all. But she is absolutely a fascinating character, and I think that's why this book stood out to me so much. And it's short, like, it's not a very long book at all, and I can't really say a lot about it without giving things away. But yeah, absolutely fascinated by her. I don't know, she just pulled me right in, and I just devoured this book. Next up we have May, which wasn't that long ago, so you've heard these, and won't get too much into these, but 20 Tales of Terror was my least favorite of the month. Still wasn't bad. This was sent to me by the author, Jordan Bryant. This is a short story collection. It's geared more toward like teen and young adults, and yeah, it's just, like I said before, reminded me of just sitting around the campfire with my cousins when I was a kid and seeing who could tell the scariest stories. But just a really good time. I did have fun with it. Now there were like some of them were kind of more childlike in their scare factor, and some of them were more sinister. So it kind of, there was a range there. But yeah, they were good fun. And then my most favorite of the month for May was The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. I'm going to read you the back of this one as well because I don't want to give anything away. A tale of revenge, cultural identity, and the cost of breaking from tradition in this latest novel from the Jordan Peele of horror literature, Stephen Graham Jones. Seamlessly blending classic horror and a dramatic narrative with sharp social commentary, The Only Good Indians follows 4 American Indian men after a disturbing event from their youth puts them in a desperate struggle for their lives. Tracked by an entity bent on revenge, these childhood friends are helpless as the culture and traditions they left behind catch up to them in a violent, vengeful way. Yeah, this one, I won't go too much into this, like I said, because I know I went on and on about this whenever I went into the review, but I absolutely love this so much. Stephen Graham Jones can weave a story like no other. Like, I consider this an absolute masterpiece, and yeah, absolutely loved it so much. It was one of those that, like, you have this sense of dread through the whole thing, and I know there were mixed reviews on this. It's one of those that I feel like people either love or hate. And a lot of people I know have a hard time getting into his writing style in this, because, and I even did too, it took me a little bit to get into it. I had a really hard time getting into it, and especially because the animals don't fare well in it, and that's something I have a really hard time reading about. But it's not for no reason. It's important to the plot, and also the slow pace is important to the plot. So yeah, even though you have to work for it a little bit, it is worth it if you can stick with it. But yeah, it was an absolute masterpiece. I loved it, and yeah, really, really, really good. Enjoyed every page of this, even though it was a little bit hard to get into. And June is the last month, and like I said, I won't get too much into these because you just heard it. My least favorite was The Luminaries. This girl, Winnie, her family has been sort of shunned because her dad was found to be helping the Dianas, which are the evil witch coven. And since they've been shunned, I think there's like a 7-year sentence or something like that. So now she's just turned 16, so she has an opportunity to do these hunter trials to get in with the Luminaries. And they're really hard, but she has this opportunity. She joins forces with this bad boy. What is his name? Jay. She joins forces with the bad boy Jay. He used to be her best friend, and now he's helping her because he knows a lot about these monsters or these nightmares that she's going up against in these hunter trials. So yeah, it was fun, but it wasn't as witchy as I expected it to be. You don't hear as much about the coven as much as it's mentioned. You don't hear any of the backstory, what the deal is with them, what makes them evil, what the deal is with her dad, why did he make that decision. I really needed more information, and also I needed more information about the Luminaries and like how they were formed. And there's just a lot of guessing. There's just a lot that's just there that you don't really learn about. But I know there's I think there's a part 2, and maybe it's explained more there. But yeah, there's not really any explanation. But yeah, other than that, it was fun. Aside from that, I loved Winnie. She was a really likable character and a really fun character and really tough. But yeah, the world building is what needed more for me. And my number 1 for June was Walking Practice by Do Min. This one is translated from Korean. It's about an alien who has crash landed on Earth, and they are using a dating app to find their prey because they have to feed. And they can shapeshift into any sex and make themselves look attractive to their prey. You know, they can figure out what that person is attracted to and make themselves look good for them. And there are the craziest freaking sex scenes in this and the craziest things ever. They carry around a backpack of like torture devices. So yeah, it's pretty freaking wild. And you're in the alien's head the whole time. So you have all their mundane thoughts and their agitations, and they get so annoyed with things, and it is hilarious. But yeah, it's a really good time. I loved it. I had one DNF so far this year as well, and that was Witch's Bane by Susan Wittig Albert. I don't think it was a bad book. It wasn't badly written or anything. It just wasn't for me. I just couldn't get into it. I had a hard time. So that was it. Those are all the best, the worst. Like I said, doesn't mean they're in the top 10 if they're on here. It doesn't mean they're in the bottom 10 if they're on here. There were some months where I had several favorites in the same month, and there were some months where I had several least favorite in the same month. So yeah, you're still gonna be surprised at the end of the year, and I kept it that way for a reason. Yeah, let me know down in the comments what your favorite book so far of the year is. I'd love to know. Next week, I'm gonna have my Halloween birthday haul. Instead of books, I ended up getting some Halloween stuff for my birthday. I'm really excited about it. I will see you next Friday. Bye for now.